can you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
We are not going to stay in a victim mindset. And yes, Teri is on her way. She'll be here in just a second. She was in transit. She was going from her office to her home office, and she has a full day of clients ahead. And that's just what life is. Life is kind of like that. Today, we're going to talk about words, and words can heal. And we all understand when someone insults us. We know when that's a harmful word. We know when we're saying something, even if we don't think we know, when we go, I didn't mean it like that. Somewhere inside, when we say things, we ultimately know what our goal is. The passive aggressive person who says something hurtful and then goes, well, that was just a joke. I didn't mean that. We know words have power. Words have got power, power, power. And today we're going to talk about the power of our words and how we choose to give somebody news, how we choose to comfort them. And, we're going to be discussing the words that have been said to us, not just insults, but sometimes, hey, Steve Burney, who just joined us, we're going to talk about words and their power and how we can use our words better. Hi, girly girl.
Hi there, sunshine. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic and really darn glad to see you.
I'm glad to see you.
Steve Burney's joined us. Candy is with us. Everybody's kind
Hi,
of
everybody.
joining in. Tell us a little bit. You've had a weekend. It was a scary weekend.
It was a very scary weekend.
You want to tell people?
I woke up at first. Let me preface this with I'm doing exceptionally well. And I'm following up with some really great caregivers and hospital folks. I woke up Saturday morning at 1 a.m. with my heart racing. And long and the short of it, I ended up in the ED or the ED, emergency department as it's called now. And my heart rate was 189 per minute. I didn't have anything that would lead me up to that. So I spent a few nights in the hospital and had a number of tests ran, and my heart was in AFib at 189 beats a minute, and now it's like 64 beats a minute. I got some medication, and I'm just watching it and trying to figure out why it did what it did, and giving grace and gratitude for the fact that it decided on its own to convert back into sinus rhythm, and I didn't have to have any procedures done. So,
amen.
Yes. So,
amen.
And had I had to have had those procedures done, I would have done them, and I would not have barked about it at all. But I'm glad I didn't have to have them done.
Yes, and Candy's weighing in. Sorry to hear about the AFib. Yeah, that's a scary thing, and hearts are a scary thing. And with the weather and the heat, I want to tell everybody keep a watch on your blood pressure and your heart.
Absolutely,
because it's a time we have to watch that. But here's where I got the topic for today. I didn't even tell you what it was, but I wanted to talk the power of words. And we're not going to use any names or anything, but there was a very scary, cold way that you were given some news and you were asked questions in the hospital by a medical profession. But it made me think about how many times we've asked somebody a question and we have brought everything back to a cold, well, I just have to know. These are just questions. These are just questions.
It's a very matter of fact.
You want to tell the question?
Sure. Well, actually, I got there and they put some, pads and EKG things on me. And I asked at one point, what were these things for? And they said, oh, it's just how we monitor you. And I was like, okay, great. And worked my nerves down. And then I'd gone to the restroom, come back, and they were hooking me back up to everything. And one of the leads wasn't hooked up. And I said, what does this lead go to? And the girl said, oh, it's the defibrillator. And I said, what? I don't have a defibrillator. Like, I know what that is. Like, nobody mentioned a defibrillator to me. Apparently, my heart rate was so high, they thought that I might flatline. And so they were ready for that. I'm sort of glad they didn't tell me ahead of time, because that, I mean, I'm really good at calming myself and grounding, but that was an unusual circumstance for me. So the question that came into play was, after one of the primary care folks had shared with me what the procedure would be on Monday, just looked at me very matter of fact and said, "So I just have to ask this question, you know, if the flatline on the table, would you like me to do everything that I can to bring you back?" And I, mind blown. I mean, of course I said yes. Um, but I was not expecting that. And even as an end of life doula, I work with people and their advanced directives all the time, but it was the delivery of that that was so shocking to me. And then when she left, I, of course, cried because I was like, shit. Like, I mean, really? And you know, and I processed it, and I understand that and this is no, I'm not in any way, shape, or form am I you know, throwing shade to the medical folks, because everyone there, I will drop at Vanderbilt University, everyone there was phenomenal. They were phenomenal. And so, but that bedside manner from that one particular person was just like, wow, you know, and it was alarming because, you know, as you said, the topic today is how we give and receive information or words. Those were, for me, just shocking, because they put everything into perspective all in 1 millisecond. And I was caught off guard by that.
Yes.
Completely. I mean, I think I told you, you know, I mean, I'm pretty sure I even told you where I was just like, crap, you know. And I'm grateful that they asked the question. I just wish it had been asked in maybe a little softer way.
I am constantly thinking through how I ask things, because I get really busy, and being in a broadcast industry for so long, and everything's in 30 seconds and 60 seconds, and everything is like, come on, bottom line me here. Come on, we got to go. We got to go. And I've had to back off my manner, because I realize I've said things and my facial expression didn't match the gravity of my words. And everybody I talk to is not on a broadcast. Everybody I talk to is just life happens. And I want to find out too, if anybody has ever had words said to them that were like that kind of hit you like a ton of bricks. It's really made me rethink how I ask for news and how I deliver comfort.
Yeah. Well, and I will tell you this, just over the, I think it was Tuesday evening or Monday. My days are kind of a blur right now, but it was either Monday or Tuesday. I don't watch news a lot, but I had sat down and the news was on, and I realized, you know, I was experiencing the same kind of thing there, because what they led with was, you know, abrasive news story that was just like, you know, family killed, people shot, war, there's this, there's that, there's all of this. And then they ended it with, this little boy hits a home run and the crowd goes crazy. And it was literally like a 15-second of good on the heels of 20 minutes of, and mind you, I was trying to doze in and out through part of that, but it was just a lot. And I thought, we don't absorb. If we have 15 seconds of good come in, it's wonderful that we have that good come in, but it's not enough to offset the 45 minutes of heaviness, you know, and how we deliver our words to people. It can be in the medical setting. It can be with your friends, with your families, with your partners, you know, just in our tone and our absent connection to the weight of the conversation.
I'm going to give an example in real life. And right now it's very timely, because Roe v. Wade being overturned has brought up a lot for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I want us to be careful with how we start posting and how we start talking to people in our own circles, because you don't know who in that circle has agonized over a decision maybe their entire lives.
Mm. Yes.
And when we start talking about it, and um, I actually had someone, uh, in a conversation. It was just, this weekend I was somewhere and someone says, well, anyone who does that's just a murderer.
Mm.
And not knowing who was in our circle,
Right.
not knowing that someone might have experienced that, um, I think that we can hurt people and then turn around. Anyone's just murderers, and the Lord just doesn't want us doing that. And the Lord, do not place your opinions on the Lord, because I'm just going to speak real quickly as a Christian, as a believer. Jesus saw everybody sin the same, and he died for everyone that he looked at, and he saved us all. That's not a for me, it's not just a belief system, this is what it is. So I just don't like people jumping in there saying, well, the Lord judges you and therefore you are bad if you do this. And we just, homie, don't play that, and Jesus don't either. So there you go. Okay, off the soapbox, but words are very important. We have to understand, when we talk to people, we don't know what their individual pains are. Another very sweet Christian woman approached a dear friend of mine who had just lost his 3-month-old son
Mm.
and said, well, honey, he's in a better place.
Yeah.
In that moment, that changed that man forever.
Mm-hmm.
He left the church, he left those people, he goes and he hated the God, or stopped believing in a God that would take his 3-month-old son from him. Do I blame him? No, I don't.
Right.
And we need to be careful with our words.
We do need to be careful with our words. And we also need to be mindful that, one, not everyone has the same belief system. Two, not everyone has the same experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So when I work with people and I hear people come into my office and say, if I hear one more other person tell me, well, they're in a better place, or, well, God had a plan for them. Those are things that, while from a place of intentionality, they are said to comfort, but we're oftentimes disconnected to that, and we grab these sayings off of the shelf and we just sort of throw it out, and they're not all one size doesn't fit all. So being mindful that some people will turn away. They'll turn away from their belief system. They'll turn away from their family. They'll turn away from their friends. And it's not because they are angry. It's because they're heartbroken, because someone has said something at a time when their brain is just trying to process. So yes, having a baby and having someone say, well, they're in a better place, or, God had a plan, I mean, I have a client that I worked with a family who lost their daughter. And everyone in their church came to them and said, well, God just needed that angel. God must have needed her more than you did. And all intentionally intended for comfort. But that is not something to say to someone who has just lost their loved one, no matter what that loved one, whether it's a 2 or a 4-legged loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is not something that is comforting. So sometimes silence is the best gift of love to give someone, or asking them if they're open to a hug, or, those are nonverbal things that can comfort. And also, if they don't want to hug and they don't want to talk about it, respect that and don't say, well, aren't they in a mood right now?
Mhm.
Well, that's just blah, blah, blah. Aim to shut down those conversations that are designed to tear down other people, you know.
Loretta, God bless you, Loretta. I cannot tell you how many times I was told you are young and can have another. At the
Mm-hmm.
time I lost my daughter, this was in 1989. Oh my God, Loretta, that hurts my heart.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm so sorry that someone would say something like that.
Absolutely. And as blind of a statement as that is, and it levels a person when they hear it because it doesn't connect to their loss.
Mm,
It's a general, there's still hope, but it says it in the most contorted and twisted and inappropriate way that you could ever. And if we're being honest, there's nothing, and I say this to people often, there's nothing that I can say or do right now in this moment that's going to ease what your heart and your mind are wrestling with, but I am here. If ever you decide you need a shoulder or an ear, or you want to cuss, scream, vent, or cry. And you have to know that when you offer that up to people, you're offering it from a place of, I'm holding that space for you.
right. Candy says the same thing. Sometimes just saying I'm sorry and I'm here for you is where we are. There's so many things that we say, and we do mean well. We do
Hmm.
mean well. I think there are a lot of people posting on Facebook now about certain things. Our words on Facebook matter. It is social media,
Absolutely.
but our words on Facebook matter.
Our words on Facebook matter because we have in the last few years become isolated in a lot of ways. And some people interact with people on social media more than they interact with humans on the
Mhm.
daily. So, and they put more stock into what these people say and think, which is, if it's encouraging and uplifting, that's a great thing. But if it's stirring the pot, well, that's not such a great thing. So I remind people often check the people you follow, check the feeds you follow. And if it makes you cringe when you see it, and it's not something that is an awareness standpoint, but it makes you cringe and you just want to zoom past it, unfollow
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Social media is not your conscience, so you're allowed to unfollow things that make you uncomfortable, and I mean, you can absolutely do that.
Well, I've watched people take people to task on Facebook, and they go, "Well, this is my page. I can say what I want to." If you were in the if you post in public
Hmm.
and it is a very polarizing statement, know that you might get some people who disagree with you. They might take you to task for your opinions. If you don't like that kind of confrontation, don't post it there. And I will tell you right now, very few people, if any people, have been changed. Their dyed in the wool opinion, their
Hmm.
thought, belief system, whatever. Very few are ever changed by your Facebook feed.
Absolutely. If anything, they are ignited to then go and bounce off of something someone has said, um, and then sort of spread that wildfire to theirs. And if they have a lot of people who are like minded with them, it's going to spread. So I'm mindful enough that, I mean, I have family
Mhm.
members that I've blocked, and not because I'm not able to have a conversation with them, but
Mhm.
because I don't post a lot of confrontational stuff. And so when I'm posting something on my wall, it is not confrontational. But if you want to make it confrontational, then first we're going to have a conversation in private about that. And secondly, if you continue it again, you're going to be blocked because it is social media. I mean, this is not a hill I'm going to die on, and I'm not going to debate that with a bazillion different people. So we have to be mindful,
Mhm.
with our words and with our choice of what we put out there.
Mhm. Candy says, I won't post anything online about Roe versus Wade because of all the stuff put on there. Everyone's coming from a different direction on it. I agree with you, Candy. Same, same. And here's another thing: pro-choice does not necessarily mean pro-abortion. Everybody else,
Absolutely.
everybody needs to understand that. And um, there are a lot of people. I actually had a conversation with a dear friend of mine who is a single dad. of daughters. And he says, I had everything in my life all worked out, what I was against, what I was vehemently against. He said, but then I thought about my little girls coming into me saying, Daddy, this happened to me. I was raped. I was attacked. I made a mistake, Daddy. I'm 14 years old. And he said, I really had to wrestle with my thought processes on that. And he said, being able to comfort my daughters and think about them has made me think about this subject as less black and white and more individually. It's a matter of hearts. It's a matter of hearts. And our words on these subjects can destroy someone, even if we're well-meaning. Even if we're
Absolutely.
well-meaning. And I'll guarantee you that people who lose a child, however they lose them, they've wrestled with it, they've carried the burden, and if it happened 20 minutes ago, or if it happened 25 years ago, or several decades ago, it's still in the heart, and it's still something that we carry. So I just want to ask everyone, if you are a person of compassion, think about the words and think about, there isn't a black and white in this world. We all are individuals, and the words that we use to comfort, describe, or to spout out our beliefs, we have to remember that there are people who can hear us.
And first and foremost, I put at the front of that compassion,
Mm-hmm.
because we all are human, and there is not one of us that has never had a miss of us. We have all shown up bright and shiny, and we have shown up tarnished and crusty. So, and that's okay. We judge ourselves enough for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't have to be, there's not a hill worth dying on if it means that it's going to, let me rephrase that. There's not anything that I would intentionally be confrontational about against someone that I don't know their story. You know, we can have conversations and not agree with people.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Corinne, tarnished and crusty. We can have conversations and not agree with people all day long, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we can walk away and go, I still don't agree with them. And that's okay too. But where we cross the line is where we start name calling and pointing fingers and judging, because the last time I looked, that was not our place anyway. So,
Yeah.
but we do
I
it because we're human.
And we want other people to know our belief system. We want to know that we want to be right. We want to be right. And we'll fight and we'll use those things. It's like, well, I'm going to say this and I'm going to change somebody's mind. Maybe, but the truth is, I don't know that being right means denigrating someone else.
It never means you're never right if you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You will
And
always side on the wrong side if you are constantly tearing people down. Because
Candy says, we used to be able to agree to disagree, but today people get loud and very judgmental. Yes.
yeah. Well, I say to clients often that the reason that people get loud is because the language going on inside their head, the need to voice their opinion, the need to be heard, is so loud that when they open their mouth, they're 10 octaves louder. And that is done sometimes to shut other people down. But what we don't recognize many times is there's someone right there that feels the same way about their beliefs and their stance, and they're going to fire back at you. So nothing ever comes out of that of value. Now, if we can sit down like adults and talk about things, I posted on my Facebook wall, and I don't mind sharing it with anyone listening here, Facebook wall, that if yesterday was today, when I was raped at 19, had that rapist impregnated me, I would have been forced to be a mother at 19. And I would have liked the choice not to have had a vile act that was so cruel and so traumatizing alter my entire life forever. Now, that's between me and my maker, nobody else, you know. And I know that, many people were sorry that happened. I didn't post that for people to be sorry that it happened. I'm not sorry it happened. I'm not a victim from it. Would I prefer to go through life without it? Absolutely. But it did happen. And I am the person I am today in part because of what I learned from that experience and how I learned to re-love myself because of self-hate. So we can always learn something if we're compassionate enough to listen. But when we can't hear our own thoughts because we got to say something and we got to have the last word, we're going to remain ignorant, and ignorant isn't bliss.
Right.
It's deadly.
Well, I agree with you. And that's Teri and I have talked about this, and I'm just going to go ahead and share something. And you guys, it's out there. And I've said it at women's ministry events too. I was also raped at 19. And I exercised my right of choice very, very soon after that. In case of rape or incest, they always say that. But I will tell you that making that choice has stuck with me for the rest of my life. And there are things that were never explained to me. What could happen to a woman's body? What could happen to your mind? And how you live your life? And it's taken a long time. So I know the gravity of that situation is that women are not flippantly making it. But I do want to encourage you that if you are in a situation like that, whether there is a law, whether there's not a law, the way that we change anything that is moral in our world is in a heart. It's not in a courtroom. It is not on Facebook. It is whatever. It's reaching out in love and going, how can I help you? And let's work through that. And if anybody is struggling with a situation, I think that it's really important that you find someone to speak to and to talk to that can really help you and understand. And there are, whether it's on that issue or another issue, whatever you have walked through in your life, I want you to reach out to someone to help you, because I have, and I'm going to tell you a story real quick. I was standing on a stage somewhere and I told my story. And there was a young woman who was in the audience. A year later, I met this young woman and she said, I was in the audience. I had been raped by a serial rapist. My husband was taking me on the following Monday to have an abortion. I heard your story. I took the video home and I shared it with my husband, and he reached over and he took my hand and he said, well, I guess we're going to be raising a new baby daughter because somehow this child is here. And she said, I want you to meet Grace. And she brought out this beautiful child. And I had to let myself wrap around that because it was really heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that it is a wrong choice for a woman who has been brutalized to make the choice not to have that child, but you do have a choice. And whether you choose to have or to not to have, I think that it is very important that we realize that our words years later or in the moment are very, very important. And I was glad to meet Grace, and there was a huge amount of healing. And I think God is amazing and infinite in how he wraps around you. But if anybody's watching this show, we weren't here to we were not put on this earth to be judges. We were put on this earth to be love. Period. End of story. So if you are struggling with something, you can reach out to either one of us.
Absolutely. And there is zero judgment.
And thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for being part of our show, and use your words wisely. Use your words with compassion. I know we got Candy and Rhonda and Corinne and let's see, Loretta. Joyce is here with us today. And,
Nice.
And of course, Steve, we love Steve. We couldn't be, I just don't know what I'd do without my Steve. So you guys, I just hope that, we've given you some love today.
Absolutely. And also understanding that some of the topics that we unpack, depending on what happens from a global standpoint with us, some of these topics are touchy and they can be prickly and they can be they can be hard to not hard, they can be challenging to wrap your head around. But I think sometimes when and I'm not here to tell anybody, not to have their opinion, but what I am here to say is sometimes our opinions get so solid and so concrete that we lose sight that we actually have friends and family and people that we love and that we respect, and they've been through some situations, and sometimes they can actually act ways. So, creating that space to have healthy conversations that allow, you to grow and heal as individuals, all of us to grow and heal as individuals, and to step into more compassion and out of judgment, then, I mean, I think there's several people that know that I do some work at Riverbend Prison, and there is not a more, that is my heaven, quite honestly. There is there are so many beautiful souls that I work with there that some have made parole and gotten out and they're living their best life. And that if that will teach someone quicker than anything, that our judgment that we have is far more about us and our insecurities and our need to be right than it is ever about the other person.
Amen.
You
Amen
know,
to the hallelujah. And Loretta, Devon, you work with Jeff Sneed. Yeah, Jeff from the Gospel Fest. And I know you, Loretta. So good to have you here. And Candy says, and I love this. It's a great way before we close and put a bow on this puppy. It would be nice if opinions could bend with new perspectives.
absolutely.
Ooh, that is a good statement and a way to bring it home. Teri, why don't you
Absolutely.
close us out today?
All right. Well, as always, we appreciate you all joining in and sharing with us and choosing to spend your 30 minutes during the middle of the day on a Wednesday with us. And until we see you next week, please increase your peace and create an amazing day. See ya.